I think true freshman running back Rueben Owens could have a Quinshon Judkins-esque freshman season.
You are Locked On Aggies, your daily podcast on the Texas A&M Aggies. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome on into Locked On Aggies. I'm your host, Andrew Stefaniak. Thanks for making Locked On Aggies your first listen every single day. Today, we're going to be breaking down a little bit about the running game and talking about Rueben Owens and my opinion on his kind of ceiling for this season. So, I made the take of, I believe that Rueben Owens could have a Quinshon Judkins-esque season. Let's break that down. I have a few caveats to this, and so we're going to break it all down. Running through the numbers, we're going to run through all these numbers, and I'll lay this out for us. Rueben Owens is 6 foot, 200 pounds. He's put on 8 pounds from on the recruiting sites, they'll have a height and a weight. He's up 8 pounds from his which means since he's been on campus, he's put on some pounds, which is good. Put on some muscle. So Quinshon Judkins is 5'11", 210 pounds. So Judkins has 10 pounds on Owens, but Owens has an inch of height. Last season in his true freshman season at Ole Miss, Judkins had 274 carries, 1,567 yards, and 16 touchdowns. So, my caveat is this. And then the last number here, too, is Rueben Owens was the 31st best player in the class on 247 Sports, 5-star, and Judkins was the 3-star, the 562nd best player in his high school recruiting class. So, this is the debate here is this. When I say a Quinshon Judkins-esque season, what I am saying, in my opinion, is that he's going to come on, that Rueben Owens is going to be kind of the breakout running back for the breakout true freshman running back in the SEC this season. Judkins, the season he had last year was unbelievable. The numbers, we just read them, were out of this world. It was like playing the college football 2014 NCAA game. That's what it was like. And Judkins, just from the minute he got carries, and it's funny, I remember my grandpa told me, I hadn't seen him play really yet. And my Papa calls me after the game and goes, Andrew, this Judkins kid? And I said, no, I haven't really watched him play yet. And he goes, this kid is something else. You need to watch out for him. And then I started seeing him and I was really impressed. But the reason I think Owens could have a season similar, I don't think it's going to be similar statistic wise, but I think if you kind of broke it down, I don't think Owens is going to get that many carries. I don't think he's going to have 274 carries. Now, Zach Evans at Ole Miss last season had $144 for 936 yards and 9 touchdowns. So he was involved. It wasn't like it was just the Judkins show. Evans was getting touches. But the reason that I think Owens will be the breakout freshman running back, but won't put up the same numbers as Judkins, is because of the way Coach Petrino likes to use his stable of running backs. He likes to spread the ball around and give everybody equal carries. So, you look at Ole Miss's numbers last year, it was pretty much the carries for Judkins, the carries for Zach Evans, the carries for Dart, which obviously the quarterback, and then that was it. There wasn't a three-headed monster. It was just those two guys. It's going to be a three-headed monster with Le'Veon Moss, Amari Daniels, and Rueben Owens. So I think that is going to lead to, while I think Owens will break onto the scene and be the star true freshman running back this season, I don't think the numbers are going to be the same. If you told me Rueben Owens had 200 carries for 1,000 yards and 10 touchdowns, I think you could argue, based on that wasn't the same amount of work that Judkins had. That was that's a season similar to what Judkins did. And that's what I think Owens can do. So I think here's the deal. And that's the issue. I think if you did just flat out if you gave Owens 270 carries like Judkins had last season, I think he's a good enough player to put up similar numbers. I don't think he's going to have the touches. So the numbers aren't going to be the same, but I do think when the season comes to an end and we look back, we all might go to ourselves, wow, Owens really did have a season similar to what Judkins did. Not totally in the numbers, averages. That's what I've been looking for. If you took the average, like the yards per carry, stuff like that, I think it could end up being similar. But I don't think the usage is going to be similar, just because it's going to be a 3-headed monster instead of a 2-headed monster. So I really do think that is his ceiling. So no, do I think he's going to get 1,500 yards on the ground and 16 touchdowns? I don't. I could see a world where he had 1,000 yards and 10 touchdowns, but it's not because he's not as good of a player as Judkins. It's because he's not going to get the same usage. So if Owens does get somewhat similar usage, which, like I said, I don't see it, but it could happen. I mean, if Coach Petrino wants to ride the hot hand and Owens wins starting job and he's him, then maybe it could happen. But I just kind of think that's his pathway to it. But Moss and Daniels were going to get their fair share of carries. So I've been very clear about that. I think this is going to be like, and we talked about Evans and Judkins. Evans had almost 1,000 yards, and Judkins, of course, was over 1,500 yards. I think you could see like your leading rusher having 1,000 yards and then two guys with like 700, something like that. Like, I think it's going to be that spread out to where everybody's going to eat, which I don't think is a bad thing, especially if the Aggies make a run and make a SEC championship run or a college football playoff run or something magical and special happens. You like having fresh legs under your running backs and some of your skill position players. So I think utilizing these players that way is smart. I like that Coach Petrino does that. It's like, you look at in the NFL, I love fantasy football. I think many do. But you hate it when your running back doesn't have a Derrick Henry role where they're going to get everything. You don't like it when it's Tony Pollard and Zeke and stuff like that. Like, you don't like that. In college football, when I'm rooting for my college team, I like the ball getting spread around because like I said, it keeps people healthy. It keeps people fresh. And that's a good thing when it comes to college football and it comes to making a run. Like, there's no reason to run Owens 25 times against, New Mexico, or Abilene Christian. There's just no reason to do that. Give each of these guys 10 carries, let them in games like that, save their legs for the big games, for the Tennessee game and the Bama game and the Ole Miss game and the LSU game. Like save the running backs' legs for the big time games. And I think that's what Coach Petrino's offense is kind of set up to do, which, as I've said, I really am a big believer in that. I think it's a good thing for college football. I think it's a good thing for the Aggies this season. But like I said, I don't think, I'm pretty confident I'm going to get some people in the comments saying, oh, no, because now I need to preface, which I really didn't say. Judkins is, I said he's great, but he's just so good. He is an unbelievable player. I can't wait to see what he does this year when I think he could have 300 carries this year. I think they're going to let him eat. But great player. I'm not like hating on Judkins when I'm saying this. I just think Owens could be the kind of break onto the scene for true freshman running back like Judkins was the season ago for Ole Miss. But Judkins, great player and a great story. The fact that underrated guy, not a super highly ranked guy, and come in and do what he did at Ole Miss. Good story for him. So good for him. He'll be at SEC Media Days. So it'll be interesting to talk to him. But yeah, I do think that Owens could have a season similar to that. I don't think the numbers are going to be similar, but I think the averages could be similar. Yards per carry, stuff like that. So that's my opinion there. But as a whole, I think this running game for the Aggies is going to be pretty dang good this year. And I think you're obviously going to see a little bit of a downgrade losing A-Chain, but I think it's not going to be as big of a drop-off as many might have imagined heading into the offseason last year, preparing for the 2023 college football season. So lots to look forward to with the guys toting the rock for the Aggies this season. Rivals gave grades for the 2024 recruiting class so far, and they were pretty high on the Aggies. Let's talk about it. Take your first swing at betting MLB on FanDuel and get 10 times your first bet amount in bonus bets up to $200. That's right. Just bet $20 and you'll land $200 in bonus bets. Win or lose. That's $200. You can spin betting everything from money line to over under to who you think is going to hit the first home run. All on an app that's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Plus, when you win, you get paid instantly. There's no better place to bet on all the MLB action than America's #1 sports book. So sign up today and visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get up to $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, the official partner of Major League Baseball. So we received a grade, the Aggies did, for the 2024 recruiting class. And I feel pretty dang good about it. It's an article written by John Garcia, who used to be part of the Locked On Podcast Network as the recruiting analyst, which is now Brian Smith. But John, a great guy, great. He just knows a lot of knowledge. He knows these recruits very well. So I really respect and trust everything when he puts out an article like this. And I really respect his rankings. That's one thing. Like I was never a big Rivals fan until he took the gig over at Rivals. And then I started to trust their and like their rankings more once he took over there because he does a great job. Great person in the industry. But so he wrote an article and gave the Aggies an A- for the 2024 recruiting class. Thus far, one of the best grades that we saw. And so some of the things he wrote, he thinks more defensive players are going to come. Right now, the class is currently sitting with 10 offensive players and 6 defensive players. And then he believes the class is going to finish top 5. So, like I say, you read things and you see things from people. And I have, all of us in the media have people we respect. And John Garcia is a person I heavily respect in the recruiting side of things when it comes to covering college football. So if he says he thinks this class is going to be top 5, this class is going to be top 5. I really, am willing to say that. That's how much I respect all he does on the high school recruiting trail. So, it's good to hear that for this recruiting class. It's been a fun week of Aggie recruiting, landing Draylon Miller and landing Cam Coleman and landing all these players, Jalen Hornsby, to Anthony Smith, just a lot of these recent commitments. It's been fun. Another little interesting recruiting tidbit, Miles O'Neal, the 2024 recruiting class, the 2024 quarterback, we have 2 current quarterbacks committed in the class, as well as Maddox. And the O'Neal took a big boost on 3, all the way up to a 5-star, which is exciting. A player that I've talked about, he's a bigger quarterback, strong arm, can move a little bit on the ground, not more of a pocket passer, but big arm, a guy who I could definitely see stepping in and playing at some point during his time playing quarterback in the Aggies. So that's exciting, a little interesting while it came to mind, a little interesting recruiting tidbit. But and then kind of looking at the class as a whole. So you love seeing that grade. Now, this is interesting. You wonder if he would have put that article out a month ago, what would the Aggies grade be? Not great. Now, you could say, well, Andrew, he wouldn't, the article should come out now after. So I agree with that. Like the article should have come out now because this is the time where players commit. But I just think it says a lot about how far this class has come in a span of 1 month. I mean, truly, like we were having the conversation a month ago of like, we're in trouble. Should we be concerned? This isn't looking great. They've been having visits, but nobody's pulling the trigger and committing and stuff like that. So I think landing, all these guys and having a guy like John Garcia come out and say, I think this class is going to finish top 5 and give the Aggies an A- on the trail. That's high praise. So I like hearing that. Going through the class, 16 current commits, like I said, 10 on offense, 6 on defense. You got 3 linebackers, 2 quarterbacks, 1 tight end, 1 edge rusher, 1 defensive lineman, 4 wide receivers, 3 offensive linemen, 1 safety. We've talked a little bit about this, but like while we're on the matter, I'll kind of look into it a little bit. But like the roster as a whole, looking at the roster right now, the 2023 class and like what the Aggies need, one position I really wanted the coaching staff to hit hard in this recruiting class was the linebacker position, which they did. They've already got 3. I wouldn't even mind you going to get 1 more. I think you got to get some more defensive linemen. I wouldn't mind another offensive lineman or 2. You got 3. You got a couple tackles in the interior. So I wouldn't mind if so you need some corners. I know there's a lot of young corners in last year's recruiting class that are, true freshmen this season, but I do think that a couple, of who we still need in this class, I'd say a couple corners, I would love another offensive lineman or two, just because that's a position I just feel like you can't have enough of. I wouldn't mind one more linebacker and then just hammer some defensive linemen. I think we're obviously good on quarterbacks. I don't think you need another tight end. There's already a ton of tight ends on the roster that are young, and then tight end. And then there's a current tight end committed. So then the wide receiver position, I think you're good there. I mean, I don't think you're going to get more than 4 receivers. So I think it's a matter of go get a couple of defensive linemen and edge rushers. I mean, you can group that into one. And then go get another linebacker, another couple of offensive linemen, a couple cornerbacks. And I think this class is getting there. 16 commits. I mean, I'm trying to think of a number. Like if you got to 25 and finished the class with like 3 defensive linemen, 2 edge rushers, 2 cornerbacks, 5 offensive linemen, and 4 linebackers, I would be stoked for what this class looks like going forward. But Texas A&M recruiting is in a great spot. And I saw a comment, and this is one thing, a narrative that I utterly hate this narrative. I don't disagree. And whoever left this comment, hey, it's your opinion. I appreciate it. I'm not knocking you for your opinion. But I just disagree. But it was a comment basically saying something along the lines of like, NIL is the only reason these players are playing here. Nobody wants to play for Jimbo, X, Y, and Z. And a lot of you everydayers jumped on the comment and said, "Heck, are you talking about, bull crap and stuff like that?" But that narrative, the whole NIL narrative, it frustrates me because NIL is part of college football. Does it make everybody happy? No. I get it. People that aren't the biggest NIL fans, I get that. But at the end of the day, what Texas A&M is doing is they're playing within the rules and succeeding, doing well what needs to be done to land recruits in the current landscape of college football. That's what the Aggies are doing, and that's what should matter. Within the rules, you're winning, you're landing recruits. And then the whole comment about like no one wants to play for Jimbo. Talk to Cam Coleman. Cam Coleman, like I said, talked about how much he had multiple different quotes about how it feels like family. He loves the staff. It's a family atmosphere. He wants to get a good education. He loves the alumni setup. He loves everything that comes with Texas A&M. So, bull crap on that. Cam Coleman wanted to come play at Texas A&M. He wanted to come play for Jimbo Fisher. And the Aggies are landing talented players. So no, don't let people take away the joy of recruiting and say, well, you bought the player, you gave him all this money, he wouldn't have come here if it wasn't for NIL. Don't let that, knock us fans down, because I just don't let it bother me, because at the end of the day, you're doing what you have to do in the current college football landscape to land recruits and to win on the recruiting trail. That's what the Aggies did. Whether it was NIL, I don't care. Texas A&M landed Cam Coleman over his hometown school in Auburn, that they wanted him bad, and the Aggies went and got him. However that got done, it got done, and that's what matters. So don't let people in that narrative knock you down. I see it sometimes, but who cares? If you're winning and you're doing it the right way, you're winning, and that's all that matters. And that's what Coach Fisher and company is doing on the recruiting trail, and that is what's going to eventually lead to more wins on the football field, hopefully this season. My fellow Locked On SEC hosts ranked the defenses in the SEC, and the Aggies were ranked criminally too low. Yeah, no. My coworkers at the Locked On Podcast Network are great people. Love interacting with them. Great colleagues. But now this rankings that they made will not stand. Won't let it happen. So I'm going to hammer down on this and give my, quick take. So, and of course, those who just listen to me, the Locked On Podcast Network, it's a massive network. We have shows for everything. We have all the NFL, NBA, all the shows you could ever need. We have a show for it. So, it's not just me. This isn't just my podcast. We're a big old network, and, that brings you, your team every day. So it's not just me. But the other SEC hosts ranked the the SEC defenses, sorry. And the Aggies were 6th. No. Georgia and Bama ahead of the Aggies, I can accept that. I do believe at the end of the season that could change. I think the Aggies could leapfrog one of these two defenses. I really do. But having LSU, Mississippi State, and Arkansas ahead of Texas A&M, no, man. Come on. I mean, come on. Are you kidding? That is just so in my rankings, because we all submitted our rankings, all the SEC hosts, I had the Aggies right behind Alabama and Georgia. I had them at 3. I do think there's a chance, like I said, that Texas A&M could leapfrog one of these defenses when it's all said and done at the end of the 2023 season. But I do think the fair thing to do is to have the Aggies third behind those two teams, just like we saw. So we talked about one of my first shows I did when I took over was one of the, on three 24/7, whatever, ranked their top 10 defenses in college football. And the Aggies were 9th behind the only other SEC schools were Georgia and Bama. So no, you can't convince me that Arkansas and Mississippi State, I mean, LSU, I can accept that a little bit, but Mississippi State and Arkansas, no, that's just not accurate. Frankly, I don't agree. And sometimes just people have their opinions, this and that, but this to me is just flat out wrong. I don't, you can have opinions. There's opinion and there's fact. So what I'm saying is still an opinion. It's not fact because it can't be fact, but I think this is flat out wrong having those schools ahead of the Aggies when it comes to defense. So, and I've, joked around with my coworkers that host the other SEC shows, saying stuff like, talking about how I disagree with this and, this isn't right. So you hate that. But I mean, like I say, little things motivating, it should be motivation for the defense to go and be dominant. And I think it will be. And as I said, I do think at the end of the season, when everything has come to an end, I think truly the Aggies have a great shot to finish as the third best defense in the SEC, but a real chance to leapfrog one of those two teams or maybe both and be one of the best and be the best defense in the SEC or the second best. So, don't sleep on this defense. I mean, the defensive line, I'm almost ready to say it's the best defensive line in college football. I'm almost willing enough to say that. I've been seeing that trend floating around on Twitter, and I don't really disagree. I mean, it's hard to disagree with that. So, this defense is going to be dominant. It really is. I think the last year, obviously stopping the run was problematic. I don't think you're going to see that this year. So that's an interesting note. And then real quick, before we call it a day today, this was another list that we're going to have to harp on. I'm not going to talk about this long because this will be one where if I get off on a tangent about it, it's going to be problematic. But they ranked the SEC fan bases and had Texas A&M's fan base 9th. Come on. I mean, come on. Behind LSU, Georgia, Auburn, Bama, Arkansas, South Carolina, Tennessee, and Florida. Now, fans of these other schools, not knocking everybody, but I'll tell you right now, Georgia, I mean, they bark at infants over there. Literally, they bark at children. We don't like that. And then Auburn, all they do is gripe and get their coaches fired. When it comes to support, I just South Carolina, come on, okay, LSU, there's some fan bases that I think could be, kind of matched with Texas A&M's fan base. But I mean, you could say LSU because up there, they travel well. I mean, seeing their showing at the College World Series was really impressive. But Arkansas, South Carolina, Florida, I don't agree with Florida. Tennessee is a great fan base. LSU is a great fan base. But I just don't Alabama. It's okay, their basketball team's good. There's people in the stands. If it's not good, there's not people in the stands. I just don't. I don't agree. The only fan bases here that I think you could argue are really up there with the Aggies would be LSU and Tennessee. Those are two great fan bases, and they're good people too. I like the fan bases where when you go to, that's not true. Tennessee people can be mean, but to each their own. I like being the type of fan that is kind to everybody. You show everybody respect and be nice and have a conversation because at the end of the day, we like our teams and that's it. But I just Texas A&M is one of the best fan bases in college sports, and that's a hill I'm willing to stand on and fight. So I don't love this rankings. I don't like that rankings, but I really don't like these defensive rankings with the follow the rest of the Locked On SEC hosts had. But it is what it is. Just another fuel to the fire for the Texas A&M's defense and a fuel to the fire for us Aggie fans to go and get Kyle Field loud in 2023. That is going to do it, folks. That's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Aggies. I really appreciate you all tuning in. Truly, really, I really do. It means a lot. Once again, Media Days is coming up. I talked a little bit about it on yesterday's episode of Locked On Aggies. I will be in attendance. Should have lots of fun stuff coming up for you there. I'm really looking forward to that. Love Nashville. Can't wait to be in Nashville. It's going to be electric city. So I'll be there bringing you that. But like I say, that's going to do it for today's episode. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and we will see you tomorrow.